Good morning, boys. Yesterday we learned about Peter Rabbit and how his mother left them, to go to the baker's, okay? And then she gave them instructions not to go into, whose farm was it? Mr. McGregor's farm. But Peter disobeyed her and he ran under the gate, squeezed under the gate of the farm and entered the farm. And he ate some of the vegetables which Mr. McGregor had grown there. And Peter got caught in a gooseberry net. So let's continue. Okay? It's on page 16. Peter thought his end was near and shed big tears. So Peter started crying. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve. A sieve is a tool, okay, which has a net in it, which you use to separate different things. Like sometimes at home, we use a sieve to separate the flour from the chaff. While making rotis, your mother will clean the flour in the sieve, okay? And sometimes we use it to separate the water from the tea leaves. When you make tea, you put tea leaves in the water, it boils, and then how do you pour into the cup? With the tea leaves? No. So you use a sieve to separate the tea leaves from the water, the tea water, okay. So Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve which he planned to put on top of Peter. So it was not a small sieve which we use in the house, it was a garden sieve which Mr. McGregor used to separate sand and mud from the big stones. So it was quite large, okay, which he planned to put on top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time. He rushed into the tool shed. Tool shed is a small hut where you keep your tools, gardening tools, and jumped into a can. Now, most of you have a watering can at home, okay? So that is a can. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Soon Peter sneezed. Achoo! Mr. McGregor was after him in no time and tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. So, 3 plants on Mr. McGregor had kept 3 pots of plants on the windowsill. And when Peter jumped out of the window, he upset those 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he had not the least idea which way to go. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity, not very fast, and looking around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. So now Peter's lost in the garden. He doesn't know where the gate is, and he was wandering around looking for a way to get out of the garden. And old Mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. A wood is a very small forest. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scritch, scratch, scratch, scritch. Peter scuttled underneath the bushes. So he moved very hurriedly underneath the bushes. But soon, As nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first things he saw, the first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. He's digging up onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and he saw the gate, and beyond him was the gate. So finally Peter found the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go, straight along a straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. So Mr. McGregor caught sight of him is saw him. Okay? Saw him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big tree. So Peter escaped from the garden and he was very, very frightened. So I will be posting some pictures or I will be showing you some pictures of the new words like a wheelbarrow, hoe, a tool shed, okay, and some other, a sieve, tomorrow, okay boys? And then I will be posting a video on this Peter Rabbit, a link in YouTube, okay? So you can watch the story and please read the lesson at home. Thank you.